Hey, what's up, y'all? Exodus 1, aka Indigo Sky, aka Trigger Rank, and want you to like, subscribe, share. Definitely hit the notification bell if you'd like to follow me on any of the platforms. Everything in the top of the description of YouTube. If you want to support the channel, Cash App is in the description. With that being said, let's get this show on the road, everybody. Yeah, man, we got a lot to talk about, guys.
You are watching a master at work.
What up, what up? Bishop, Bishop, what up? It's a 1010 Tamal song. I don't know, man. I don't know if it is it copyrighted song. I don't know. If it's copyright, I can't play it. We about to go to Trap More Ross, originated by Trap Lil Ross.
Well, a very interesting David update for you guys today because the former New York City medical examiner, okay, Barbara Butcher, actually sat down with the Criminally Obsessed podcast just a little while before all of the paperwork came out about the alleged timeline of the murder of Celeste and the dismemberment and all the horrible things that went down. But what's really interesting is there's a podcast here I'm going to react to with you guys, where she breaks down some really interesting facts about the state that Celeste's body was found in. And she raises some very, very interesting points, including the possibility that Celeste might well have actually put up a struggle against David, and some of the things that were maybe found on or around her body that might give a little bit more understanding about what exactly went down between her and David on the unfortunate night that she lost her life. So I'm going to show you a few clips from this interview, from this podcast, that I think are really interesting, and I'll just kind of pause and give you guys my thoughts as we go. But I think inside this podcast are some very interesting things that relate to the autopsy, and I'm just going to paint like a way clearer picture of how everything went down. So, in lieu of a big update from the courthouse, I think this is very, very interesting, and there were some things in this interview that caught me by surprise. So, here it is. Okay, it's going to be talking about the blue parts in her body, the possibility of alcohol system, and all that kind of thing. But the first thing that is basically going to come up here is before prosecutors actually revealed and made it official that David had used a chainsaw to cut up the body, Barbara identified it as a possible tool and gave some more insight into how Celeste's remains. coming out soon after, and it makes me feel like she's definitely credible. So listen to this.
When you see someone that's found not only decomposing but dismembered like she was, what does this tell you about the person who did this to her?
Psychopaths. To dismember a human body, I suppose in this instance it was for convenience. When the medical examiners investigated, the car was in a police impound lot. Looking at the car, the medical legal investigator, Karen Tapia, I believe is her name, she noted that it was a black body bag, double zippered with handles. So this is a heavy duty kind of body bag used all filled up and containing her limbs. In the body bag, torso and her head. In the trash bag were her arms and legs, dismembered with some kind of cutting edge. And that's an interesting thing I don't see here. I want to see what the forensic anthropologist says about the tool marks on the bone.
Right.
They tell you so much, and that is, we look at the bone where the cut occurred, and we can see some splintering and a heavy.
Very, very interesting. And I also thought it was fascinating that she said straight up, the state the body was found in is indicative of a psychopath. This isn't a normal way of dealing with somebody. Opens up some more. She would point out that while the autopsy used the term dismemberment for Celeste's limbs, it described her fingers as mutilated. She would actually break down some of Celeste's other injuries, and there could well be more beneath the surface that we've not paid attention to beyond, the stabbing and the
Well, just like the investigator used the term mutilated makes me think perimortem in the time of her death.
As a part of the killing.
Yeah, there's something else. Now, she has two fatal samples. One,
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
is to the liver, and it's sharp, so I'm going to say it's likely a knife, probably a single edge based on the description here. There's a defect there that goes into the liver. It can cause a lot of bleeding, right? So that's a potentially fatal wound.
What Barbara's showing us right now is the actual autopsy reports, right? So these are the illustrations that were done.
Below the nipple, we see another wound, and this one is interesting. It goes between the ribs into the pleural space. In other words, your lungs are held in a sealed container. The ribs are both, we call it disrupted. In other words, there's marks on them, and it's heavy enough and sharp enough to cut.
So she's saying the force, he would have had to really, really it to actually cause injuries that are this devastating. And it just, again, I think indicates psychopathic behavior. I think this is just hard to even see anything other than this guy being a psychopath. Now, possible that someone put up a fight against David before she lost her life.
This shows that there are other shallow cuts. The word is saying here. So not fatal wounds, but stab wounds here and there. There's an abrasion. There's multiple abrasions on her hand, on the right dorsal surface, up here. Multiple linear.
So it seems like there were signs of a struggle. There were these sort of slices on her hands, or at least what looked like. Sounds like she may well have been putting up a struggle, trying to fight against him, trying to stop. And honestly, it just makes me so sad. If he really trying to kill me, like, what have I gotten myself into? So sad to even just imagine that scenario, and the desperate fight that she probably put up against this. And David wasn't a big guy, but Celeste was just a kid, man, and there really wouldn't have been too much of a way that she could have fought back and stopped this happening. It's so sad. So after this, she would go on to kind of examine the autopsy's wording, and would talk about objects, the word objects being used to describe the cause of death, and some more backstory and an understanding as to why the audit said regarding the objects that she was killed with.
Yes, correct. And then the stab wounds to her body appear to be from a sharp knife. Because that's an interesting term. Now, part of this is because she was so decomposed. It was really terrible. She was partially liquefied, partially skeletonized. It was extensive maggot activity.
And that would have happened if she was left out? I mean, she couldn't be sealed up in something for there to be insects, could she?
That's a very interesting question. Instantly put in, and they're murdered, and then they're instantly put into a body bag, and their dismembered limbs are instantly put into a trash bag. Then this insect activity. So what we can do is look at the development stages. We get eggs laid by flies, then they become maggots, then they become pupa, when they crawl off the body into another area and hatch again into flies. And based on the number of these areas where we find pupa or maggots, we can tell the body. So it gives us an estimation of how long the person was dead. I'm not talking hours or even days, I'm talking about weeks. So if we see pupa at a scene, we know that the body was there for at least 2 weeks, possibly more. So that helps us with time of death, but that tells me that the body was out. It wasn't initially put into these body bags because they are sealed. Now, flies, the smell of this is, of course, absolutely unbearable. It's awful. Flies can smell decomposition and decay from hundreds of yards, maybe even a mile. I don't know exactly, but when this car was out on the street in Los Angeles, the smell had to be harmful. So I believe she was those body bags.
Now, this is extremely interesting because a few people have put forward this theory that David might have taken the body to Santa Barbara immediately after the murder. Now, the murderer went down between, stayed there till the early hours of the morning, and then came back and got to a radio interview. He ordered the body bag, the chainsaw, all that kind of thing, and the alleged dismemberment took place on the 5th of May. But allegedly there were others to Santa Barbara. Now, what she said was very interesting. The body is placed directly into a body bag immediately after the death. You don't see insect activity. Flies need to come and let this is so gross. Flesh for bugs and larvae and insects and maggots to begin to feast on the bio waste that is available on the body. Okay, I'm just going to try and speak about some very matter-of-fact terms. So I'm sure that flies can still lay eggs and a body can still decay and get insect activity if it's left inside of its house, not in a body bag. If it was sealed in the Tesla from the get-go, probably would have been less likely that there would have been insect activity. The way she just said that with her expertise, it actually makes me think, did David take the body and go leave it like in the woods or something like that? Was he maybe hoping that this would happen, right? If you go and leave some meat out in the middle of in a park or some woods, you're going to see flies, you're going to see insects, you're going to see ants, you're going to see all sorts of things going after it. Now, we saw a Twitch live. People saying, "Oh, David, your house full of bugs." What was it? They said, "No, spiders. There's little spiders everywhere." So that makes you wonder: was that insect activity was happening inside of David's house, where he left the body in the garage? Maybe bugs were in there. I'm sure bugs can get into a garage, not airtight. But it does make me think perhaps he went and left the body. Perhaps he went and found a little spot in Santa Barbara in the mountains, thinking, no one's going to find it. I'm going to put it up here and leave it here. Maybe I'll deal with it later. Maybe he thought that was it. He was just going to leave it up there for good. And it would just go away. Then maybe he had a change of heart. Thought, no, I need to go back. I need to crazy. Okay, absolute insanity. This guy's a psychopath. But anyway, Barbara would also open up about one of the things that sort of has been a massive debate in this case, the alcohol allegedly found, and kind of what the wounds on some of the toxicology report might actually indicate about what was going on when she died.
She had a very low level of ethanol, which does not necessarily mean that she ingested there was something, methamphetamine and Adderall. And those are, types of stimulants. So it could be a perfectly, normal prescribed drug that she had on board. Again, I note she was only 5'2" and 71 pounds. The traumatic injuries of the liver, about 1.5 inches deep into the liver. And then, as I said, it was probably a present off over the torso with many perforated skin and soft tissue without hemorrhage. Interesting. Linear abrasions on the hand. I think we've got more cuts and wounds than just those 2 stab wounds that killed her. That bothers me a lot.
And that bothers you because that shows that there was possibly a struggle. There was attempts made to stab multiple times with possibly different objects.
Yeah, that's possible. I'm thinking, there's a difference between a stab and a cut. A stab goes deep. A cut is somewhat linear. A cut it's the skin of the flesh. It doesn't penetrate fully. And I don't know if they were.
The way you described it, or deep enough to, and that would be enough for her to perish.
So basically from here, okay, what she's going to explain is that either of the 2 stab wounds could have been fatal. It could have been either one of them that killed her. And she'll basically go on to talk about the other substances that were found in Celeste's system. I do think that it is quite interesting that, she said that, there was allegedly methamphetamine, but she might have been prescribed Ritalin or Adderall. She might have had ADHD, and that was completely normal. And the alcohol in her system may well just be part of the decomposition process. So she's going to kind of break all that down.
That's right. The liver wound would be enough for her to bleed out. And the stab wound, although it didn't penetrate the lung, it did penetrate chest. We could get a collapsed lung there. That's a nasty way to die. Very painful, and it's a slow suffocation. I'm going to note also that there was no evidence of strangulation, which is interesting. When we have a crime that's very personal, when a woman is killed by a man with whom there was some physical abuse or relations, very often there's strangling, and we don't see any evidence of that here. There's no hemorrhages to the strap muscles, the hyoid bone is intact, and there's no injury to the neck itself. So that's, in ruling out certain things, it gives us a better focus on what's important here. Other toxicology, benzodiazepam, possibly a tranquilizer, and we don't know how much of tranquilizer was in the body. When someone's decomposed, we can't get a clear toxicology where we can see that it's there and how much is there. So we don't have blood that we can test. But we can test.
We just know that it's there.
Yeah, we know that it's there. Now, I'm going to take the scene. Tapia collected the maggots at the scene. We can spin those down and get toxicology from the maggots since they are eating the flesh. So we learn so much from these autopsy reports.
So she's really digging deep into the autopsy, deeper than anyone else really, and getting a lot more understanding from it than I've ever seen personally. It's really, really interesting. Now, she would return to the dismemberment again and talk about that. And just bear in mind, this interview was before we knew that it was done with a chainsaw, but it's still really interesting to hear how she's kind of thinking about it.
Clothes, the underwear, her shirt had several cut marks, the leggings were in 3 pieces from this dismemberment. What does this tell you when the clothes are still on the victim like that?
She was stabbed through her, I think it was a tube top, and there were at least 3 defects in that tube top. So if I'm correct, those are sort of short, so we can have the abdomen exposed. I don't know if all tube tops look like that, but that's what she was wearing along with leggings and
Damn, son.
And she was stabbed through the fabric. And I noticed at least 3 defects in that fabric, meaning it wasn't just the 2 fatal wounds, but they were.
The Weinstein trial ends in a mistrial. That is crazy. Like, what? It says, I hope you get famous soon. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I'm already famous. I ain't gonna lie to you. I mean, I ain't trying to brag on myself or nothing, but I'm already famous. You probably don't know. You just probably don't know who I am yet, but I'm famous, bro. I'm famous. Like, I've been doing this shit.
On as they dismembered her body. They kept those clothes on.
Yep. Yeah. It makes it harder, doesn't it? And again, it tells me something about the instrument that was used.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a scalpel, because cutting through clothes and then through the flesh causes dulling, and you'd note that on the.
So I've seen a few theories going around that maybe David might cut off the fingers to test on it, and she would describe the whole killing as cold-blooded and utilitarian, so just heartless, basically psychopathic murder.
Pure speculation. When a person. And it much more utilitarian to me. It was done with a knife, which is personal. So that means the perpetrator didn't have access to a gun, which would be so much easier. The fact that she was dismembered is utilitarian.
Right.
A huge fight that turned bad and turned physical. It's utilitarian. It's business. They needed to get rid of her.
And here's the thing, like, there's a tattoo on her other finger that says shh on it. Hide a body and dismember a body. Why would you leave a tattooed finger on that?
So that was my question. The what's up, Mint Chip 716, what's up? Hey, so that was my question with this whole thing. Like, they say that he cut off some of her fingers, but the finger that had the tattoo with the on that he didn't cut that one off. So it's like, why?
Amateur. A professional would never leave the hands in dismembering someone. Never. On fingerprints, would never leave a tattooed finger. But what does that little tattoo say to me? She has a secret. Is the secret?
But why did he leave that finger on? If he allegedly cut her other fingers off, because I think she had a tattoo with his name on it, on her finger, on her ring finger, David. Well, her family, okay, so this is the deal. Her family found out that she was with him. So they did know, they found out, but they took her phone and they tried to make it to where she wasn't able to contact him anymore. And after that, David paid a random person like $1,000 to buy her a new phone so that he could still keep in contact with her. So the family knew, but the family didn't agree of it.
The secret that she's seeing or having some relationship with this so-called celebrity singer. I never even heard of this person, but she has a secret, and that's why we say shh. And that's just my interpretation of it.
It is damning, right? I mean, the fact that it was a shush tattoo and they got them together and it's like you got this big secret and you're dealing with a minor, like it's just like, again, there's just so many things in this case that are pretty inexplicable. I mean, it's hard to even put yourself in the mindset of somebody so depraved.
Yeah,
But anyway,
Celeste was a young girl. She was a young girl, minor. It's just sad to see, and David. One thing I will say about David is actually talented. He got a lot of talent, but he gonna be singing a different tune when his ass get in jail. Shit crazy, man, but it is what it is.
one of the most disturbing parts of this interview would come after that, and this will be some discussion of, the eye that was missing. And, there's been a lot of debate about whether David actually removed Celeste's eye or whether this was, part of the decomposition process, but she would touch on this too.
There are other things here. Yeah.
Somebody got land said, Brother Gabby. I don't got no demons, man. I ain't got no demons. I got angels. I ain't got demons.
Mutilation of that and
And the eye, did you see the eye was, does that tell you anything that that left eye was not?
But see, the eye probably was missing because of the decomposition. I'm not gonna say he took an eye out. He could have did it, but the eye was missing because her body was decomposed so bad. Like,
Present.
Mhm.
Is that unusual or is that something that just happens over a period of decomposition?
Good question. Terrible to think about, but the other eye was present, although liquefied, decomposed.
mhm.
Is there some way that that eye, that missing orbit, could have been so decomposed that it liquefied and drained away?
That's what I'm saying. They're saying that the eye was so decomposed that it might have just went away. Like, you dig? That shit crazy, man. Man, pray for her family though.
I don't know. It's possible it came out before.
Well, depending on which way our head was facing to for so long in that car.
Yeah.
You have,
That's so messed up, man. That's just so messed up. You know, and the fact that she it's interesting, but she would raise a really interesting question at the end of this, and this is something I'm going to talk about. But basically, she would touch on the question as to why did David allegedly not actually follow through with disposing of this body?
that gets impounded.
Mm-hmm.
It just, one question we were thinking amongst ourselves, thinking about this with my team, was unable to release this body, couldn't be separated from this body for some reason. Like, I'm getting into the psychology of it, but it almost feels like they didn't want to let go because it didn't go very far.
Bro, say I got a chill stream. Yeah, man, we just be chilling on here, man. We just cooling, bro. hey, we just living life over here, bro. I'm living my life. I'm living life, bro. We just having fun over here, man. Just chilling, bro. Like, just living life, man. You know. At the end of the day, bro, you only got one life to live. You might as well have fun doing it, bro.
Interesting. It's certainly I mean, it's obvious that this. Yeah, it's a stupid way to get rid of the body. So maybe there is some. I'm not a psychologist, but some reluctance to let go. That may be evidenced by the fact that she was kept somewhere before she was placed into the body bag. And we were surmising that based on the insect activity that occurred, no doubt, before she was placed into these body bags. Yeah, there's a circular defect on her left flank. There's multiple cuts into the tube top. What do these things mean? You can almost develop a picture in your mind of somebody being cut multiple times or scraped and then stabbed fatally. It's not an efficient killing. Let's put it that way.
No.
Yeah. So I think sometimes amateur.
I saw.
So he's basically saying this is an amateur hour murder, right? And look, this isn't the murder Olympics or nothing like that. I'm not trying to crack jokes about this, but basically she's just saying that look, the situation was just so screwed, right? This guy's a psychopath. He sucked at committing crimes allegedly. Okay, so I do feel like that's just a fact, right? It's not you know what I'm saying? But anyway, Barbara would go on to note that actually when Celeste's remains were found, they weighed 71 pounds. And, you know, there's some good reasons why the body might have weighed so little upon being found.
Where she's found. Her missing poster showed her weighing 100. Her remains weighed in at 71 pounds.
That's right. Yeah.
How much is this normal for decomposition? And how much is this, it tells us what her physical state was before she died?
That's an interesting question. We don't know if in the time between she was last spotted And the time she was found, how long was she alive? Was she starving? Or did the decomposition effectively dehydrate in the case in liquid at the bottom of the body bag? Or she was put in the bag, or was she losing weight over some period of weeks? I don't really know. It's hard to figure out.
Is there anything?
So it's a weird, interesting point she makes, saying like, was this part of the decomposition? We don't know. She might have lost tons of weight in the lead up. It makes you wonder: was she malnourished? Was she not being looked after? Was she other time with David? He wasn't feeding her. Or was he on her about her weight? I don't really know, but it does suggest maybe a little bit of both. Okay. So she'd give more insight into something we discussed earlier. This burn
Body, isn't it?
I do this. The lead out hours to get an hour out of it. I can't get this thing to play, man.
Jermaine Dupri is going off after being.
We reacted to Caliber.
And accused of some disgusting things that he says is not true. He says
Kalibur.
he's innocent, but people online are trying to accuse him of taking advantage of younger artists.
I mean, like 50% of every piece of the pie that's when it's publishing, right? So that's what I'm saying. So as soon as Crisscross sold 2 million, it was $1 million at my door.
$1 million from
But they sold 2 million. They sold 2 million records. Like you start selling records like that, the money, the people, everybody know the money is there. Right? So then people just start showing up like, yo, I deal. You know what I mean? If you let's do 50% of your publishing, we give you $1 million advance. That's what advances start because they can see the money. But that's what I'm saying. Like that's in my way. This is what I'm saying. You make me want 100%. License up 100%.
So, okay. I mean, every label and publishing, and then you produce the music. So you get all the money.
They don't get all the money.
But what else is there to get?
I mean, but by the way, you get a significant amount of money.
A large,
But you
the line.
you get a significant amount of money. You don't get all the money. But I'm saying at the same time, you know what's funny with me is that when I be hearing people talk about contracts and this, that, and the third, the contract states what you get. You're gonna get jerked. The contract states exactly what you get. That's why you're supposed to give your contract to somebody and let them look over it, and then you get that contract back to the person that you're talking to, and it's supposed to say what you want from that person.
What's your thoughts on that? Because I always feel like, for the most part, there's no such thing as a bad deal.
People who don't understand music industry contracts heard Jermaine say he gets 100% of the publishing money and that they were kids. People who don't understand what he was saying start throwing wild allegations on him.
This is why kids.
Nah, see, I don't know if y'all know. Publishing is way different, yo. Publishing is like split sheet type stuff. Publishing is I made the beat. Publishing is I wrote the song. That's publishing. The artist gets a minimum